Hello everyone. What we're going to be doing today is multiplying and dividing rationals. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to show you an example of what it looks like with just regular numbers and multiplying fractions. Okay, so there's two different ways you can go about this, but one of the best ways that I could show you to prepare you for the next part would be reducing from what we see here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look this way and across and up and down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce this 2/4 to a 1/2. Okay, and then I'm going to look across and see if there's anything else that I can reduce. But since there's nothing else that I can reduce over here, then I'm just going to multiply straight across. So I'm going to do 1 times 3 and 2 times 8. Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 8 is 16. Okay, so this is how you would multiply fractions, and this is just reducing and then multiplying across. So we're going to do the exact same thing with these next problems, where we're going to reduce and then multiply across. Okay, so the first example over here, it looks pretty big, but it's the same thing that we did yesterday. So you're just going to factor everything, and you're going to cancel some things out. Okay, so we're going to factor the top here, then the bottom, then the top here, and then the bottom. Okay, so over here, the first one we're going to do is 1 times 16. Okay, so we want two factors of 16 that add to give you 8. So that's the number in the middle. Factors of 16 are 2 and 8, 1 and 16, and 4 and 4. Okay, so hopefully you see that 4 and 4 are going to be your factors here. Since there was a 1 in front, we can just write this as x plus 4 times x plus 4. Okay, now we're going to factor this bottom here. Notice that it's just a single x term, it's not x squared. So this is actually in its factored form. All right, so we're just going to put x plus 4. We can put it in parentheses just so it fits in. And then over here, we're going to factor the top and bottom. X squared, it doesn't have any other numbers with it, so factoring it is just x squared. And then on the bottom, we want two factors of -4 that add to give you +3. Okay, +3. So factors of -4 are 2 and 2 and 1 and 4. So we're going to use 1 and 4 to get to +3. So it's going to be +4 and -1. So we're just going to do x plus 4 times x minus 1. Okay, our next step is just going to be to start crossing stuff out. So since I would be multiplying all the way across, I can cross things out this way, or this way, or this way, or this way. So there's a ton of different ways I can cross things out. But let's just start on this side and then go from there. So notice there's an x plus 4 on top and bottom here. So I'm going to cancel out one of those because there's only one on the top, or one on the bottom. Okay. But then looking here, we have another x plus 4, and there's an x plus 4 on the bottom over here. Since I would be multiplying all the way across, this would be on the bottom of that. So these two things are going to cancel out. And then notice we have x squared and x minus 1. X squared and x minus 1 are not the same at all. So this is just going to be our answer. X squared divided by x minus 1. All right, we're going to do a few more examples, so I think you'll start to see how this is going to work. Hopefully the factoring is starting to come more natural to you as well. All right, this one we're going to do the same thing. We're going to factor this one, that one, and then that one. Okay, so first I'm going to factor this guy over here. All right, 1 times 10 is 10, and I want two factors of 10 to add to give me +7. Okay, so factors of 10 are 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. So we're going to use 2 and 5 to get to 7. So this term up here is going to become x plus 2 times x plus 5. Then the one on the bottom, we're going to do 1 times -20. All right, 1 times -20 is -20. And we want two factors of -20 that add to give you +1 because there's a 1 in front of that x. Factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. Okay, so we're going to be using 4 and 5 to get to +1. we need the 5 to be positive and the 4 to be negative so that it's positive 1. So we're going to do 5 and negative 4. All right, so it's going to be x plus 5, so positive 5, and negative 4, so minus 4. Then we're going to reduce this side over here. X to the third, anytime there's not another number with it, you're just going to leave it just as that. So we're going to leave it as x to the third. And then on the bottom here, we have two terms, and they're both divisible by the same number. Okay, so both of these are divisible by 8. So we're going to pull out an 8. 8 divided by 8 is just 1, and then you're just left over with the x. 16 divided by 8 is positive 2, so that's what you're going to be left over with there. So then our next step is just going to be crossing things out. Okay, so up here, we have an x plus 2 on the top, but we also have an x plus 2 on the bottom over here. So since we have 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom, then these are going to cancel out. We have an x plus 5 on top and bottom. And notice that there's nothing else that we have in common on the top and bottom. So our answer is just going to be x to the third divided by, and we're just going to say 8 times x minus 4. So we're going to put 8 times x minus 4. All right, so this is going to be your answer here. Okay, let me just work out one more on multiplying, and then we're going to move to dividing. I think you'll see that dividing is very, very similar to multiplying. So let's move on to this third example here. All right, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to factor everything and then cancel some stuff out. So looking on the top here, we have 9x minus 36. Notice that both of these terms are divisible by 9. So we're going to pull out a 9. Whenever I divide out the 9, I'm just left with an x. Whenever I divide out the 9, I'm left with negative 4. On the bottom here, we're doing 1 times positive 32. So I want two factors of 32 that add to give me negative 12. Factors of 32 are 1 and 32, 2 and 16. Okay, 2 and 16 is not going to get us there. 8 and 4, that's what's going to get us there. Okay, so we're going to use 8 and negative 4, but we need to get to negative 12. So this is going to be negative 8 and negative 4. Okay, those multiplied together will give you positive 32, and added will give you negative 12. So it's going to be x minus 8 times x minus 4. And then up top, we're going to factor this one. So we're going to do 1 times negative 8. We're going to get negative 8. Two factors of negative 8 that add to give you negative 7. Okay, so factors of negative 8 are 1 and 8, which is what's going to get us there, or 2 and 4, which wouldn't get us there. Okay, so we're going to use negative 8 and positive 1 to get us to negative 7. So this is going to be x minus 8 times x plus 1. And then on the bottom, notice that these two terms are both divisible by 8. So I'm going to pull out an 8. Whenever I divide out the 8, I'm just going to get x. Whenever I divide out the 8, I'm going to get negative 9. Okay, so now that we have everything simplified, we can start crossing some things out. Okay, so here we have a 9 on the top, but there's no 9 by itself on the bottom here, so we can't cancel out that 9. We have an x minus 4 on top and bottom here. We have an x minus 8 on the bottom here and an x minus 8 on top here, so these are going to cancel out. And there's no x plus 1, there's no x minus 9. So now what we're going to do is just multiply straight across. It's going to be 9 times x plus 1 divided by 8 times x minus 9. And this is just going to be your answer. Okay, so you cross out all the things that you possibly can, and whatever is left over, so here we had 9x plus 1 and 8 times x plus 9, or x minus 9, that is what's going to be your answer. Okay, so let's move on to dividing. The only difference in dividing from multiplying is that you have to do keep, change, flip. Okay, keep, change, flip. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to keep the first fraction, change it to multiplication, and then flip the last one. All right, so this is going to be 8 divided by 3. And then you're just going to do the exact same thing that we did before. Okay, so you're just going to cancel some things out. 2 and 4, that is going to reduce to 1 over 2. Then we can see that this has a 2 on the bottom, and 8 can be reduced to 4 times 2. So this is actually going to become a 4, and we can make this guy a 1. Okay, so this is going to be 1 times 4, which is 4, divided by 1 times 3, which is 3. Okay, I know I went a little bit fast on that, but moral of the story, you're just flipping the second fraction, and then you're just doing multiplication like we've been doing. Okay, so let's move on to an example. We're going to do the exact same thing as before, except this second fraction is going to be flipped, and we're just going to cross things out exactly the same. So for the first one, we're going to do 1 times negative 18. You get negative 18. You want 2 factors of negative 18 to add to give you negative 3. All right, factors of negative 18 are 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Okay, so we're going to be using 3 and 6 here. It's negative 3, so we're going to use negative 6 and positive 3. Okay, so this one's going to factor to x minus 6 times x plus 3. All right, now we're going to factor the bottom. You have x squared minus 9. Okay, so notice that you have x squared and then subtracting 3 squared. Okay, so this one, hopefully you've seen a pattern of this enough times now to know that this is x plus 3 times x minus 3, because 9 is 3 squared. Okay, x plus 3 times x minus 3. If you don't see that yet, you can go back and watch the video before this. I think it will help you out with your factoring. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the first one, change it to multiplication, and I'm going to go ahead and flip this as I'm reducing it. Okay, so that 9x squared is going to come up to the top, and I can't reduce 9x squared, it's just 9x squared. Then here, this is our new denominator. Notice that 9 and negative 54 are both divisible by 9, so I'm going to pull out the 9, and then I'll be left over with x, and 54 divided by 9 is 6, so we're going to have negative 6 there. Now I can just start crossing stuff out on the top and the bottom. Okay, so here we have x minus 6 on top, and x minus 6 on bottom, x plus 3 on top and bottom, and we have a 9 on the top and the bottom. Okay, so all that we're going to be left over with is x squared divided by x minus 3. Okay, let's do 2 more examples, and then you guys you'll be good to go. Okay, factoring the top and bottom here. Again, hopefully factoring is getting easier. If not, just go back and watch the video before this again. Okay, x to the 4th minus 8x to the 3rd. First thing you want to ask yourself is, do these two things have stuff in common? Yes, they do. They each have 3 x's in them. So I'm going to pull out an x to the 3rd. Whenever I take out 3 x's, I'm left with 1. Whenever I take out 3 x's, I'm left with negative 8. On the bottom, I'm just going to have 4x. You cannot reduce 4x. It's just 4x. Then I'm going to change this to multiplication, and I'm going to flip these two things down here. Okay, so this is going to be my new numerator. So I'm going to do 1 times 1, which is 1. Okay, and I want 2 factors of 1 that add to give me negative 2. Okay, 2 factors of 1 that add to give me negative 2. Hopefully you see this is going to be negative 1 and negative 1. Okay, so on our new top, this is our new numerator, it's going to be x minus 1 times x minus 1. Then our new denominator, we're going to do 1 times positive 8. Okay, so we're going to get 8. And we want 2 factors of 8 to add to give us negative 9. Okay, so here again, hopefully you're starting to see the pattern with factoring. This is going to be negative 8 and negative 1. So it's going to be x minus 8 times x minus 1. All right, now that we've done this, we can go ahead and do our canceling out. All right, x to the third, that is x times x times x. So since there's 3 x's on top and there's 1 x on the bottom, one of those is going to cancel out. So this is going to become x squared. All right, now looking here, there's no 4 that's going to cancel out with that, so that's just going to stay. There's an x minus 8 on top and bottom, and there's 1 x minus 1 that can cancel out because there's only 1 on the bottom. Okay, so you can only cancel out one of them. So what we're going to be left over with here is x squared divided by 4 and then times x minus 1. Okay, so this is going to be x squared times x minus 1, because remember we're multiplying across, and then divided by all that's left on the bottom is 4. So let's do one more example. Same thing, factoring the top and bottom. First thing you want to ask yourself, do these have something in common? Yes, they do. They each have 2 x's. So I'm going to pull out x squared. Whenever I take out 2 x's, I'm left with 1x. Whenever I take out 2 x's, I'm just left with the number positive 1. X to the third just stays the same. Now I'm keeping, changing, and flipping. Okay, so this is going to change to multiplication. X squared minus 4. Again, hopefully you see this is a difference of squares. All right, so you want 2 factors of negative 4 that add to give you 0 because there's no number in the middle. Okay, so that's going to be positive 2 and negative 2. So this is going to be x minus 2 times x plus 2. Again, if you do not like seeing difference of squares, you can say what 2 factors of negative 4 add to give you 0. Okay, 2 factors of negative 4 that add to give you 0 is going to be negative 2 and positive 2. Okay, so you can do it that way as well. All right, then our bottom here, we're going to do 1 times positive 2. So we're going to get 2. You want 2 factors of 2 that add to give you positive 3. Okay. Factors of 2 are just 1 and 2, and that just happens to be the factors that add to 3. So we're going to do x plus 1 times x plus 2. Now that we're here, we can go ahead and cancel things out. We have 2 x's on the top and 3 x's on the bottom. So 2 of those are going to cancel out. That one's going to go away completely, and this one is just going to become regular x. Okay, then I have x plus 1 on top and bottom, and x plus 2 on top and bottom. Okay, so now what we're going to be left over with is x minus 2 divided by x. Okay, if you're not getting things that cancel out here, you probably did this problem incorrectly. So just go back and check that your steps are correct and that you're keeping, changing, and flipping if it's dividing. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like in Delta Math. All right. All right, it's going to look something like this. Okay, so the multiplying and dividing is all going to be in the same place. So with each problem, you could be getting a multiplication problem or you could be getting a division problem. Unfortunately, there is no video that's been created, but you can click Show Solution, and it will give you a nice detailed solutions. This actually did more steps than I did. So whichever way you want to do it is completely fine with me. Please let me know if you have any questions about these at all. I would be very happy to help you. Hope you guys enjoyed this recording and have a nice rest of your day. Bye.